Jack,
Okay,
carry on.
okay, I'm Jack, KF5WJ, and I'm back on the into ham radio after some years out, and trying to figure out ways to get antennas up in my lot that has no trees. I did put up a vertical, but it's extremely noisy here in town, and I ran across the in-fed half-wave antennas. These are inexpensive and they're multi-band. They'll cover the HF band, all the HF bands pretty well. They're very easily made, and they're also you can also buy them. They're commercially available, but you can make them a lot cheaper. They're very easily done, and particularly for new hams that are new or people new to HF, this is a very good way to get a good antenna up and get on the air without spending very much money at all. Go to the next slide, Bob. Okay, the N-Wave, we're probably all familiar with the random wire antennas, and they use most of them use a 9-to-1 on them, but this is an N-fed half-wave antenna, and you cut the wire so that it fits the lowest band. Like if you want 80 meters, you'd have what, about 135 feet? 40 meters, you'd have about 65 feet. But you cut the wire for that lowest band, and then it will work on all higher bands. So 40, 20, 15, 10, and people have even gotten them on 17 and 12 as well. So they work well for just one piece of wire. That's all it needs to be, and it can be bent around. It doesn't have to be straight. It can be bent. It doesn't need a counterpoise, and most people don't use a ground on it either. Seems like for what little I've learned about it so far, the counterpoise is pretty much the coax shield, but that needs to be on the ground to give you some of that. But where this really shines is a place like mine that has no trees. Well, I've got one tree, but that doesn't really help me where the tree is. And it's also great for HOA installations because one little thin wire is very easy to hide. Usually don't need a tuner. If you do need a tuner, the one in the radio will just about work every time. And it's great for parks on the air, summits on the air, any kind of program like that you want to do because they're very small, very light. All you have to do is find a way to kind of get it up. But I did see one report where a fellow had it laying on the ground and made contacts. So these things just seem to work, and they're cheap and easy to use. Go to the next slide.
One moment, Jack. Let me reset the repeater.
Sure.
Carry on, Jack.
Okay, this is I've pulled this off of a web presentation, a YouTube presentation, but it just shows the schematic of what it's doing. It's a basic transformer, but there's a capacitor across a couple of the leads, and it's a 49-to-1 transformer. Let's go to the next slide. And this shows a schematic of really how to build it with all the parts and everything else. You make the transformer. It's coming in from the transmitter on the bottom of the picture here, and it's wound in such a way that when you get through the transformer, it's going out at the top, out to the half-wave antenna. But it, like I say, it works very well. Go to the next slide. It shows a real construction of one. It uses the toroids and a particular mix of the toroids, and 12 magnet wire, just enamel coated copper wire is all you need, and it works. You can mount it in about any configuration. Bob, we can go through the next slides fairly quickly. Horizontal with a tree, which I don't have. Next one. Inverted L, where you have a vertical and a horizontal component, so you get radiation patterns off of both, also with a tree. Go ahead, Bob. A sloper. Now this can work with pretty well with a fiberglass pole if you're doing something like POTA, and get it up in the air fairly quickly with a fiberglass pole. But using a sloper, go ahead to the next one. And the inverted V is what I have to use because it sits on my back wooden fence, and I've got a 2x4 stuck up about 15 feet as the so. And from that, I'm pretty well working the whole United States on my, 50 watts or less. So it works extremely well. It does the job for me. Example of the SWRs. Go to the next slide. Give it a second. KF5WJ. And this shows one fella's, this is not mine, but it's another fella's SWR plot across the frequencies. And you see there for the low points are falling just about all the way across the band. Now, these are a little higher on the plot here than I have on mine. Most of mine are 1.5 or less on the SWR. So go to the next slide. And then it, whoops, went backward, go forward. And Steve Ellington is he's got, whoops, back again to the slide with Steve Ellington. But Steve Ellington on YouTube, if you just search for him, you can find presentations there, how to build them, how to wind the transformer. It's all there. And it's fairly easy to do. In fact, it's real easy to do. A kid could do it just with a little bit of instruction, a little soldering capability to put the capacitor in. But if you're interested in HF and want multi-band and want portability, this is an antenna to look at. So I appreciate it. Bob, I'll go back to you, KF5WJ.
Thank you, Jack. That was very interesting.